NYC-DEP for the parcel purchase, either through sale or outright purchase by the town. And whereas the town of Shandaken has made several attempts to sell said parcel with no offers being made over the last several years. And whereas New York City DEP is requesting immediate and final closeout of this agreement. And whereas the town of Shandaken accepted a local flood analysis, LFA, for the hamlets of Phoenicia and Mount Tremper, and whereas the LFA highlighted certain activities to mitigate flooding and improve resiliency in response to future flood events, and whereas one of those projects is retention of a town-owned parcel along Route 28 in Phoenicia for future use as a site for the critical community facilities, and whereas the town of Shandaken Town Hall, highway garage, and ambulance department are all located within the floodway of the Esopus Creek. And whereas the town, through the New York Rising program, is initiating a feasibility study and design for a new town complex, town hall, highway garage, and ambulance department, to meet the goals outlined in the LFA. And whereas the Catskill Watershed Corporation, CWC, has funding available to communities that have accepted an LFA. Therefore be it resolved that the town of Shandaken Town Board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to file an application to the CWC for funding of the purchase of said parcel, while the town awaits conclusion of said study and design for this activity. And I move its adoption.
I second it.
Discussion, please. Now, we own this property now, correct? So
we own it by monies that were provided through the DEP, through the EFC, for the NFIP program, I guess you would say. But it's through a number of things. But technically, we still owe them the money for the purchase of it from years ago.
Right. Back when Bob was here. So if we don't get funds to do a new town hall and facility and all that, we're still purchasing this property.
We're still purchasing this property, and as I said in the opening statement,
that
own if the project fails to move forward, if the relocation project moves forward, we owe nothing. We'll retain ownership of the parcel. If the project fails to move forward, we will owe the money to the CWC, which again is going to be an easier partner than having to deal with the DEP, whose legal department will get involved, and we'll end up in a litigation. And being a member community of the CWC, we have a better siding with them than we do with DEP and the demands they're trying to make, because they want to be done with this contract.
So CWC is loaning us money to purchase the property?
CWC is purchasing the property for the intent of relocation of the town hall. If we choose not to move forward for the relocation, then we will owe the money, but it allows us time to possibly sell the parcel for a longer period of time, or pay it out over time if we want to retain it for future use at some other point.
But at this point, we have a guarantee to DEP to purchase the property.
Yes, we owe them the money.
We owe it that money.
Yes.
And CWC is willing to put up the money to see if this town hall thing comes to fruition.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Public comments and resolutions is over with. I'm sorry.
How much is it?
It's 107,000. It's 4 acres of property along Route 28.
Out of the flood zone.
Out of the flood zone.
Okay.
And actually, in the new maps, it's out of the 500-year flood zone.
Much better location. Right here.
We're in the flood right here.
Right.
So, and we can attest to the fish we caught during Irene in the parking lot.
Would that help our rating?
Yes. By having critical infrastructure located out of a newer building where we could actually operate as a command post. Again, during Irene, we were operating in the Phoenicia Firehouse just because of communication limitations that we had. We had the Verizon substation down the road, so they were able to swing extra lines in for us to get communication lines going. That's located in the floodplain, near the floodway.
But that's even down the road if we even get that money.
Correct.
Right.
And this will have a generator.
Yes, there will be generators and so on.
A place for people to go.
No. This is just to get the CWC, to get it from the DEP, and then we could deal with CWC.
Correct. If it doesn't move forward.
If it doesn't move forward, right. Got it.
Okay. So, we're at, Gail seconded it.
Are we done with discussion?
We're done with discussion.
Okay. Board Member Alba? Yes. Board Member DeSclafani?
Yes.
Board Member Storms?
Yes.
Supervisor Sanders?
Yes.
Resolution 135-16. Set public hearing for adoption of flood ordinance maps and insurance study provided by FEMA. Whereas the town of Shandaken Town has over the past several years been in review of new flood insurance rate maps. An accompanying insurance study and model flood ordinances, firms and accessory items provided by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, NYC-DEC. And whereas under federal guidelines, the town has been notified by FEMA to move ahead with adoption of the firms and accessory items. And whereas the adoption of the firms and accessory items must be completed by October 18, 2016, in order to avoid town-wide termination of all flood insurance policies. And whereas the adoption of the firms and accessory items is an amendment to law which requires a public hearing, and therefore be it resolved that the Town of Shandaken Town Board does hereby set a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, September 27, 2016, at 6:30 p.m. to hear all those in favor of and against said adoption of the firms and accessory items, and move its adoption.
I'll second.
Board Member Alba?
Yes.
Board Member DeSclafani?
Yes.
Board Member Storms?
Yes.
Supervisor Sanders?
Yes.
Resolution 136-16, authorizing supervisors to enter agreement with New York City Department of Environmental Protection regarding FEMA buyout properties. Whereas the town of Shandaken Town suffered devastating losses from Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee storms in August and September of 2011, and whereas multiple residential parcels endured substantial damages from said storms, as described under Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA guidelines, which make them eligible for purchase through the FEMA buyout program, and whereas 16 parcels have been identified and have remained in the FEMA buyout program, which includes demolition of any structures and restricting the parcels as open space perpetually. And whereas the town has declined taking ownership of these parcels, whereby the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, NYC-DEP, is willing to take ownership. And whereas in order for these buyouts to continue being processed, the town and NYC-DEP must enter into an agreement regarding maintenance of said parcels, whereby NYC-DEP is offering minimal maintenance, including annual property inspections, boundary maintenance, and signage, but not included active management, mowing, snow plowing, etc. And whereas the town understands that moving forward, if the town wishes active management activities to take place on these parcels, the town would have to take the responsibility for these through a permitting process of the NYC-DEP. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Shandaken Town Board does hereby authorize the town supervisor to enter into an agreement with NYC-DEP with understanding of all that is prescribed above, and moves the following parcel forward through FEMA buyout program. Parcel number 8602, SBL number 12.18-1-12, owner Thomas Hickey III. And I move its adoption.
Second.
Can I ask a question on this?
Sure.
Is this maintaining of the property per property, and we decide if we want to maintain it or not, or take over the maintenance of
These are all
it?
parcels that we discussed
Right.
many years ago.
Right, I understand that, but are we taking control of mowing it and taking care of it,
No.
or leaving it all wild?
That's what this is about. This
Right.
is saying that they are reverting back to wilderness, that
Okay.
we're not,
We're not touching any of
if
them.
we did, we would have to go through a process and that would require other resolutions for us.
Got it, okay, got it.
And we would take that responsibility.
If we chose to.
Well,
Yeah,
We're not.
okay.
Yeah, this parcel, if you're not familiar with, this is the old country store that's across from Kidney Hollow Road.
Right.
It's kind of been falling into the road for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's really not, it's not stream, it has no stream access, it just has access to the hillside behind it, and really isn't worthwhile for us for any activity.
And it's so polite to look at that every time you walk
And it's
or
been
drive
a
by.
big point of contention up in Auburn.
Yeah, really bad.
Board Member Alba?
Yes.
Board Member DeScalani?
Yes.
Board Member Storrs?
Yes.
Supervisor Stanley?
Yes. Resolution 13716, resolution authorizing waiver of a 30-day notification required by the New York State Liquor Authority. Whereas Catskill Pines LLC, 5327 Route 212, Mount Tremper, New York, 12457, has applied for a liquor license. And whereas Catskill Pines LLC has requested that the town waive the 30-day notification required by the New York State Liquor Authority in an effort to expedite the granting of a liquor license to Catskill Pines LLC. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shandaken does hereby grant the request of the Catskill Pines LLC and does hereby waive the 30-day liquor license notice requirement to the Catskill Pines LLC, 5327 Route 212, Mount Tremper, New York, 12457, and move its adoption.
What? You got it?
Yeah. So,
Board Member Alba?
Yes.
Board Member DeScalani?
yes.
Board Member Storrs?
Yes.
Supervisor Stanley?
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Resolution 138-16, resolution requesting no campaign signage until after Columbus Day, October 10th, 2016. Whereas the town of Shandaken recognizes the importance of preserving its natural beauty and viewscapes throughout the town, and whereas Columbus Day weekend is recognized as a highly desirable time for visitors to travel to our area and enjoy the pristine beauty of Shandaken. Therefore, the town board of Shandaken requests that campaign signs for the general election, regardless of party affiliation or contest, not be displayed until after Columbus Day, October 10th, 2016. I move adoption.
I second.
Board Member Alba?
Yes.
Board Member DeScalani?
Oh, sure.
Board Member Storrs?
Yes.
Supervisor Stanley?
Yes.
Silly.
With that, we'll go to open public comment.
Pick up the police.
We can go back. Yes. Police. Chad, would you mind giving us the police report?
You said no.
All right. So we handled 184 calls for service, 10 arrests and 20 tickets were issued, and we patrolled 6,700 miles. And just the Tommy Sharon resignation is temporary, technicality, it should be back soon.
Oh,
Good.
And beyond that, any other questions, we can talk about it afterwards. Thanks.
Any other public comments? So, Gary had his hand first.
It's just with Parks and Recreation, Marty's got grandmother duty tonight in Albany, but she wanted everybody to know that she scheduled a meeting for September 22nd, Thursday, at the Town Hall at 3 p.m.
Got it.
Thanks. I have two things. One is I wanted to remind everybody that the Lark in the Park, which is a series of events, educational events and hiking and canoeing, is coming up. It's the first 10 days in October, so October 1st through 10th. And those activities will be available on the website. I think it's catskilllark.org or something like that. Easily found with a Google search, and down at the Maurice D. Vinci Catskill Interpretive Center. I also wanted to bring up a concern that we raised last year at the organizational meeting about the process by which appointments are made to the planning board and the zoning board. And the process for the planning board has been put into town law as the planning board conducting interviews in October and then making a recommendation to the town board. That process doesn't involve all the members of the town board. Usually a member of the town board has been invited to those interviews, and the zoning board has done something similar, making a recommendation. The concern that I have is that when I was running for town office at one point, I sat in on those interviews, and I didn't feel that the planning board was able to conduct those interviews in a way that was fair to everyone. And also putting in the hands of these boards that they make a recommendation, it's very easy for them to recommend somebody that's already working with them. It's harder for them to recommend somebody who's new to them. And so what we tended to have is a lot of the boards have the same people all the time. And have nothing against anybody who served on those boards. I have served on one myself and was not reappointed. So I like to see that we can have the possibility for change, or we can reappoint, and that appointment responsibility is in the hands of the town board. The current process, you can receive a recommendation from these boards and do something other than what they recommend. And so we could just leave it alone. But it seems to me that if we set up a process where the town board has the responsibility for the interviews and announces it, that it might generate more people coming forward, and it's a better process overall. It gives you the responsibility, as you actually have when you take the vote in January, to reappoint, as each year somebody rotates off, or their term expires on these boards, and it could rotate off. So I've been in contact with the Department of State, and our current law, which is Chapter 39 of the Town Code, has two sections that deal with this. It's 3910 and 3911. And 3910 says the planning board will conduct these interviews. And I propose that the town board make a motion to ask an attorney to write it up, but that we basically ask that that language be changed to say the town board will conduct these interviews. And 3911 says that the planning board will make a recommendation, and I suggest that the attorney be asked to just delete that. If the town board made a motion tonight to ask an attorney to draft that up, we could have it ready and have a public hearing. We could make a motion to have a public hearing before the next meeting in October, and there would be enough time to circulate the language from the lawyer by that meeting. It's 7 business days, not counting Sunday, before you actually vote on it. So it's something like, if the attorney got back to you in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we could do it for this year. Even if it didn't get done that promptly, we would still have this in motion so that we wouldn't keep coming up each year that in January we have a problem. We would have a way to make a change. And so I would ask for somebody to make that motion, to send it to the town lawyer, and there are very simple changes in those two sections of the law, and make a motion to have a public hearing in anticipation of that language coming back from the lawyer very quickly. It has to be in a certain form because it's a law, but it's a simple form. You have to state the law under which you do it, which is the same law that we created this Chapter 39 in the first place, and you have to have an enactment date and then the text of the change that you propose.
So Kathy, again, I know you brought this up last year, and quite honestly, again, I have never stopped any town board member from going into the planning board meetings. When they go to executive session, they can certainly take part in those interview process while they're there. Ultimately, it is the town board at the reorganizational meeting that does do the appointment. So as we had this year, the town board did make those appointments. I feel that when you do it just solely with the town board, without a recommendation, one, you politicize it. If I'm to hire a police officer, I am absolutely going to go to the department head or the police commissioners. If I go to the highway department for an appointment, I'm going to ask the highway department head. If I'm looking for somebody to work in the assessor's office, and so on and so forth. Those departments are responsible and know what they have to do and what's to be asked of those departments. When we interview for a planning board or zoning secretary, we try to have a planning board or zoning board member and the building inspector there, along with the town board member, and they can oversight. You can talk to Doris Bartlett. Her and I sat on many interviews together, doing this bipartisan, looking at it, asking the town board if they had questions. Again, if the town board wishes to sit in on this interview process, I've already contacted the planning boards and zoning boards saying, hey guys, it's that time of year again. You know, people looking for reappointments, but I think you advertise for the position, see who's available. If there's new people available, town board members can certainly sit in those executive sessions and then pass word to other town board members if they feel there's a stronger candidate and why. So to change the law, I think it's a minute thing, and it really puts it just on the town board, but really politicizes it, because whoever controls the board then controls those boards for the interim, until the next 2 years come, and then you're gonna have this mishmash, and it's not good.
Let me speak a minute. Just to throw the wrench in the gear, last year after Gail and I were elected in November, or even before, we weren't invited to the interviews, which is stated in the law. So things can happen that are overlooked. And personally, I didn't know there was an interview going on, even having been on the town board prior to when this law was in. I was busy. Maybe I did know and I completely spaced it out, but an invitation would have fixed that. And as the law says, invitation should be sent out to town board members, even those who were just elected.
So you're saying that as a former town supervisor and councilman, you were not aware that the interviews would take place in the fall prior to the reappointment process?
Of course, I was just, I
You were
had
not
just
aware of
gone
that,
through an
even when you
election,
made-
I was busy. wasn't
Even when
on
you made
time.
aware
Even then,
that
even then.
in January's appointments where I showed you that you made decisions and changed the decisions of the recommendations of those boards to go with whatever majority you had at the time, and those people weren't allowed to go to the interviews, such as Timmy and Vin at the one time.
They weren't allowed.
No, they weren't at the interview process. They were new to the board and were here, as admitted by Timmy in January's meeting this year.
Sure. Well, see, that's
So-
the thing. That's
But you're on the
it's
board.
all part of it.
But you're on the
If we
board and
make-
you're a town board
if
member.
we make
And
a
to say you
town
don't know these
board
people,
interview-
you don't know these people, you don't know what they represent, stop by, call them up. We're not a big town.
No, of course not.
You can sit in on the interview. You are not just coming in as a newly elected official anymore. You are here. You can come to the planning board meeting. You can sit in. You can go to the planning board chair, call him up. His office is in Phoenicia.
We do. Talk to them all the time.
So then what's the problem? You know,
The problem is it puts the burden on the planning board to do that when it shouldn't be. It's our burden. It's our responsibility.
So I'm gonna hire a police
Or-
officer because I
No,
feel
it's-
there should be a
the-
police
the
officer?
police, the ambulance, highway, it's a different story. That's a different matter.
They're credentialed.
The water department? I'd like Rick to be involved in it. I'd probably have the water committee involved in the interview process for anybody to be hired for the water committee.
Sure, have them involved in it.
I mean, that's just the
But
way it goes.
shouldn't you be doing the interview?
I
planning
overlook all of
board?
it. I overlook all
Planning board
the
and
resumes,
zoning board?
everything we get. I get reports from them. If I feel that there's somebody that's substantial that's going to be there, then fine. Maybe I'll show up. But I also have a daughter that I'm
I
watching.
think it'd be more important to have a town board interview. We do it one night, we do the planning board in 1 hour, the next hour we do ZBA. Just those two boards that are important to the town.
How does that work out?
I'm
People
sorry.
on the planning board, sorry,
We're in a board discussion now. I disagree with you, but if you want to make a motion right now, you can make a motion and we'll see where it goes.
I'm just throwing out an idea. I don't have a motion to put out there. I don't think we need essentially the lawyer to look at it. It's either we think it's a good idea that the town board do the interviews, or that we think it's a good idea to let the boards interview internally.
What do other boards do? I mean, is that a standard practice on other boards?
Other towns.
Other
Planning
towns?
board and zoning
Other
boards
town
make the
boards?
recommendations to the town board. If the town board members wish to sit in during those interviews at the executive session, which they occur at an executive session, they are more than welcome to join in those meetings.
When you say join in the meeting, so we can ask questions.
You can ask questions,
get
you
really
can sit
involved.
there as an executive session, yes, you can ask the questions, you can interview the people. To do a town board level, I think there's something more at play here than just following recommendations of the planning board.
Well, doesn't the town board?
It could be
have
just
the
as much at
final vote?
play with the planning board as it is the town board. Or the ZBA. Everybody's political. You can say, oh, you know, it's too political for the town board to do it. You're just,
No, I'm following the recommendation of the people that do the job, the people that are familiar with
yes,
what
I
needs to be
know,
done.
but it's
when they
also-
do the interviews.
It's like, well, then, you know, like we could do interview ourselves and just say, well, I recommend Rob's supervisor next year. I mean, we can't do that.
That's not the way it works. These are elected officials, these
Of
are
course,
elected
of course.
positions.
And we're talking appointed boards.
Correct.
That should be discussed at the town level, not at the board level. Not at
And
the
what's to
planning
stop
board.
you from going to the planning board meeting when they're interviewing for those positions?
Nothing.
So
Well,
what's
it
the
would be-
difference
it
if
would
you
be a
do it
meeting.
there
If there were three or
than we
more
do
of
it
you
here
there.
without any planning board members present?
Nothing, but there was some lack last fall where I didn't get invited and Gail didn't get invited.
How are you better qualified than the people that are on the board for maybe 4 or 5
Thank you.
years?
It's not a qualification, it's a responsibility. It's our responsibility.
So you don't have to be
So it was your
qualified.
responsibility when you ran for the position you knew because you had had the position before as well as the town supervisor position to say,
Don't argue
we
semantics.
should.
It's
I'm not
just-
arguing semantics, you're acting like you did not know that they were going to have a process to select a planning
Gail
and zoning
didn't
board
know.
member.
Okay, Gail didn't know. Gail
And I
was not-
understand, Gail may not have known, but you didn't parlay that to her? You didn't send that to her?
You know,
You
we're
didn't-
not together that often.
Okay, but you knew.
You know.
And then you complained after the fact that you couldn't go to the meeting when you had nothing
Skipped my
stopping you
mind,
from going to the
but
meeting.
a reminder,
Skipped
an
your mind.
invitation.
Skipped your
would
mind
have helped.
is not following through with what your responsibility was, once you were elected, and you knew when you were
But I
running for
wasn't-
office,
I
if
wasn't
that was
in
something
office.
you wanted to be
I was
involved.
not in office.
You were elected. You're sitting here complaining in one aspect, that as the elect, you were not invited, but you weren't in
It would have
office, so
been-
you weren't
A reminder
invited.
would have been nice.
It says in the law that electeds are, but not yet in office, are supposed to be invited. But that did not happen.
So fault us for that, I will make sure that they send, next time the election occurs, we will send it out to the elected officials that are elected at that point. But at that
I
point, it's
think there's
generally
a-
too late because they're already through the process at November
My
3rd. they're
point
doing the
exactly.
interviews.
My point exactly. So by changing this, it puts it back in the hands of the town board. You can set those interviews at a time when you know who the officials are, the new electeds are. So you can make those interviews in November.
Late
Instead of
November,
October.
early December.
How does this
And
benefit?
if the town board members show up at a planning board meeting, holding the interviews, if there's more than 3 members there, it would be an unnoticed meeting. Whereas if you, as the town board, are conducting the interviews, you can hold the meeting and go into an
They
executive session.
cannot discuss the business at the open meeting. They could
The
go to
business
executive
is-
session. They could be allowed to go into executive session with them to perform the interviews though.
But the actual content of the meeting
We're
is
we're going around in circles with this, and is somebody making a motion on this, or?
One other thing I'd like to say in response to what you said, Rob. You said that you would interview your secretary, but you're not interviewing the people who are the persons for whom the secretary is working. These are the planning board members. You said you would want to conduct, you wouldn't let the planning board.
No, we take part in it.
But if-
Myself, Doris Barty, myself and Timmy, or whoever it may be, sit at the interview with the department people that are conducting the interview. We may have certain questions that we ask of the town board, what questions do you want asked of people? Those are the things we do.
And
And
if
there's
the
nothing
town,
again to stop from these board members to reach out to, as Pete said, he's called Don many times and spoken to him many times. Well, then send him a list of what your questions are for potential candidates for the planning board. I mean,
well, what I'm saying is that when the town board has the responsibility, the planning board and the zoning board can still be involved in it, but the nature of the hierarchy of the decision-making is clear. And in these positions, what you're interviewing is interviewing volunteers, all of whom when they start, have no particular knowledge of this. They don't, not required to have any background, they're not trained as police, they haven't gone through an academy, they're not trained as EMTs, they're volunteers, and they receive training as they come in. So the only thing that the board should really be looking at is disqualifying features. And that isn't what has been happening from the planning board. What you get from the planning board is a desire to have new members join them that match what they already are.
I just